The first of our weekly chats with our TSN hockey insider, Pierre LeBrun, for 2026. Here he is. Good to see you, my friend. You know, Pierre, parity seems to be the big talk around the NHL right now. Like, no team in the Eastern Conference is farther than 6 points out of a playoff spot. So my first question for you is, how do you think all this parity might affect the team's trade deadline plans? Because, Pierre, for you and I, the trade deadline is everything.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Jay, and top of the new year to you. I won't say Happy New Year because I don't want Larry David to find out that this late into January I said Happy New Year, so I'm not saying Happy New Year. No, it has an impact because, of course, what happens is you have teams that aren't ready to raise the white flag in terms of being sellers. Too many teams that are in it. And I know in talking to some teams this week that they have run into that. You know, there are players they'd like to get deeper in on talks with, but teams are saying, well, let's get to the Olympic break and see where we are. And that's what I'm hearing a lot. Now, I still think we'll have some moves between now and the February 4th Olympic trade freeze. It's like 2 trade deadlines this year, Jay. We have the Olympic trade freeze from February 4th to the 22nd, and then the real trade deadline March 6th. I think we'll see some moves. I think it'll be more smaller to medium before February 4th. And then I think the bigger moves will be closer to March 6th because there are teams, contenders, wanting to wait to make sure that players that may be interested in that are playing in the Olympics stay healthy, or that their own Olympians come back healthy and that they don't have to pivot from their trade deadline plan.
So let's just dive a little further into that for people who didn't even realize there was an Olympic trade freeze. So you pointed it out. The actual trade deadline's March the 6th. The tournament itself is February 11th, but there's an Olympic trade freeze February the 4th. So based on what you just said, it sounds like you don't expect a massive amount of deals between the Olympic trade freeze and the actual trade deadline. You still expect most of those bigger deals to come on March the 6th.
Yeah, closer to March 6th. There are still 12 days between the end of the Olympic break or the trade freeze on February 22nd at midnight and the March 6th trade deadline. So a little more time, I think, than people realize. Like, listen, I remember after the Vancouver Olympics, literally the trade deadline was 48 hours after the golden goal in Vancouver. I mean, that was wild. I mean, I'm on the plane trying to find out what's going on. And so there is still 12 days to work with. And I think that some teams are saying that's enough time for them to find out for sure what they need ahead of March 6th. But like I said, I still think we'll have some moves in the next few weeks from some teams that feel like they can't wait, that their seasons, depends on trying to, like look at Toronto is scouring the market, like Darren Dreger mentioned this week, looking for a defenseman. The Winnipeg Jets are in last place, but could they pick up a top 9 forward that helps them not just for this year, but beyond? These are conversations happening for real in real time by teams that need to be having them.
Speaking of the Olympics, Pierre, you and I have talked a lot about Connor Bedard. He ultimately did not make the roster. However, this is interesting. He was asked earlier this week if he's been asked to be ready to be an injury replacement in Milan, and this is what he had to say. Take a listen.
I believe so, yeah. I talked. They were, nice enough to give me a call kind of before it came out and, let me know, obviously, that, I wasn't going to be there, but, I'm pretty sure they did mention that, so, yeah.
Okay, so maybe help us translate that, Pierre. Like, how exactly would this process work, say, if one of the Canadian forwards was not able to play in Milan because of an injury?
Yeah, well, first of all, Jay, can I just point out, I thought Connor Bedard handled that with so much maturity, the way he reacted to not being put on that Olympic team, and his comments to media in Chicago. Really, a lot of leadership in the way he handled that, which I think would have been noted by Team Canada. But yeah, let me explain the process, because honestly, the day that Canada announced their roster, last week, I wasn't 100% sure how this reserve list thing was going to work. And what I realized is this. Technically, every country still has access to the rest of all the players on their IOC long list. So you may remember that Canada had 90-plus players on their IOC long list at the start of the year. These are all players that would have had to have gone through the anti-doping protocol, being tested anytime. So that means that Canada still has 60-plus players left on that list right now. In theory, they could leave that list open in terms of being able to pick their replacement players from anyone on that list. That's not what they're going to do. What I've been told is that Team Canada has basically made their reserve list to about 15 or so players. And those 15 players have been advised of that, Connor Bedard being one of them. And the reason for that is I don't think Team Canada felt it was fair to have a bunch of guys still being tested when really they were never going to get a call if there was an injury. So they've really tightened their list to about 15 names or so, which is still, by the way, a pretty deep list. But it gives Canada flexibility. And the reason for that is, and Doug Armstrong said this the day they announced Team Canada, the player, if they have an injury, it's not like next man up 100%, it's this forward or this D. It's going to depend on who gets hurt and what role that player had on Team Canada. So I'll give you an example. Luckily for everyone involved, Tom Wilson injury isn't as serious as it looked, right? He's day to day, and it doesn't look like it will affect his Olympics. But let's say it would have knocked him out of Milan. Well, Sam Bennett probably makes sense as next man up for Tom Wilson, okay? But let's say there's an injury to a top 6 offensive player. Well, maybe Connor Bedard is next on the list. That would make more sense. What if there's an injury to a guy, that's a penalty killer or can play up and down the lineup, can do a bit of everything? Wyatt Johnston would probably be next man up from the Dallas. So my point is there's a reason why there's a pretty deep reserve list, 15 or so players, because it's really going to depend on which player gets hurt as to who they call as next man up.
Pierre, when it comes to hockey, I don't need to tell you this, but Sweden is so hot right now, right? Fresh off that World Junior gold. Third favorite to win Olympic gold in Milan. But a couple of their top players, and one really concerning because he was out for 3 years, Gabriel Landeskog and then Victor Hedman. Couple of injuries. Those are key players for the Sweden team. What can you tell us about their status as we are about a month away from the Olympics, Pierre?
Yeah, they are a deep team, especially on the blue line. And when you think of the faces of leadership of Sweden and best on best, it's Gabriel Landeskog, who in fact was named their captain last June for the Olympics. And of course, Victor Hedman, who's been captain in the past. And neither one of those guys now are 100% to be in Milan, which is really nerve-wracking for Sweden. I spoke with Sam Hallam, who picked the team. He's the head coach for Sweden. He gets to pick the team in their case. What he said on Victor Hedman was that they hope that he's going to play a game or two before the Olympic break and be ready for Milan. That's what the Tampa Bay Lightning have also confirmed to me, that they believe Hedman should be back in early February. He's recovering from elbow surgery, but they can't say it 100%. So that's Hedman, who, by the way, has been one of the most outspoken star players in the last several years about the need for the NHL to be back in the Olympics. It's something Victor Hedman's never experienced, so we hope that he's going to be okay. Landeskog, you mentioned it, boy, the 3-year return, everything he's gone through. Luckily, it's not the knee. I mean, that's what we were all holding our breath for, right? It's an upper body injury, but it's not a good injury. What the Avalanche have told me is that they're going to reassess Landeskog in a couple weeks to see how he's healing and then have a better idea of his timeline. But they have not ruled out the Olympics at this point. So Sweden really hoping that Landeskog, their captain, will heal in time for Milan.
Pierre, I won't say Happy New Year, but I will say, let's you and I take 2026 day to day, okay?
I mean, I've been doing that for 30 years, buddy.